So, most of you have heard of PETA, right? Well, I'm sorry to hear about that. Today I want to take a look at the more evil side of one of the most preachiest, obnoxious, hypocritical and just utterly awful organisations in the animal welfare world. You truly will not believe what these scumbags have gotten up to in their shady past. The PETA movement was founded on the 22nd of March 1980 by Alex Pacheco, in the good old US of A, obviously. It was founded under the values that speciesism shall be outlawed, meaning that all creatures should have all the rights of humans, which is a wild idea in itself. I mean, could you imagine if your landlord was a bloody goat or something? I get that, hurt animals equals bad, of course. I love animals, but I don't want a goose serving me breakfast. Anyway, I'm getting off track here. PETA is essentially known for their wild escapades, which are fabricated in such a way to be as offensive and outrageous enough that the mainstream media picks up on them and creates a shitstorm in the public eye, therefore throwing the organisation into virality, but rarely in a good way. They are the essence of all publicity is good publicity. You may have noticed this strategy has been adopted by other activists around the world, including the notorious Just Stop Oil and the Extinction Rebellion movements. The outrage strategy is a good for one thing for certain, raising eyebrows. I would argue that this is one of the worst ways to get your point across, or more importantly, get people on your side. If you make me 4 hours late for work because you're sitting on the bloody middle of the M25, I'm not going to like you, I'm afraid. So on to the first questionable method that PETA decided to dip into. First controversy I'd like to show you is just bizarre. Back in the golden years of 2008, PETA found themselves in some pretty hot water by claiming that the consumption of cow's milk was somehow linked to autism. Obviously it was a play on the famous "Got Milk" slogan coined by the milk industry back in 1993. So you must be thinking, it must have some pretty compelling evidence for such a bold claim, right? Well, interestingly, when pressed on the issue by the media, they responded by citing two scientific papers from 1995 and 2002. But these papers have seemed to be pretty unreliable due to the sheer size of the testing pool, only being 36 kids on the first paper and 20 subjects on the second. And the result of these papers actually showed that there is no link between milk and autism. So this got shut down pretty quickly. Also, on a side note, it wasn't just autism they blamed milk for. It was also cancer, asthma, anemia and many other diseases. Back in 2017, online news website asked for a comment from PETA about the old ad campaign, and they replied with the following statement: "This is an old campaign that's still on our website because we have heard from people who have said it contains helpful information." So despite the consensus being a load of BS, they're sticking with their guns. In 2006, we lost a pioneer in the world of animal education, Steve Irwin. I personally grew up watching his shows that were broadcast all around the world, so he is a figure that is widely loved and adored. So upon his death, the world mourned, except for PETA, of course. The comments released by PETA's vice president, Dan Matthews, were, "Irwin had made a career out of antagonising frightened wild animals," which obviously got the backup of millions of fans of Irwin. This even angered the Australian government. In 2019, Google paid tribute to Steve Irwin for his 57th birthday by way of the Google Doodle. PETA felt the need to comment once again on Google's support of a cultural icon by saying in a couple of tweets that Irwin was killed while harassing a ray and that he forced animals to perform. Also, that Google were promoting a dangerous message. Now, this one's pretty wild. PETA released an ad that shows a meeting at the American Kennel Club, which is an organisation that is an expert in all things dog. Put simply, in the ad created by PETA, it shows an average meeting at the AKC. When a member of the KKK walks in casually, to the surprise of the AKC of course, the member then goes on to list the things that they all see aligned with the KKK, like the need for a master race. I don't have to tell you that comparing the KKK to a club about pedigree dogs is unreasonable.
I'm sorry, sir. I think you have the wrong meeting.
Oh, is this the American Kennel Club?
Yes, but, we're discussing...
And you believe in the sanctity of pure bloodlines, right?
Yes.
And breeding to achieve a master race?
Well, master pedigree. They're...
Race, pedigree, I mean, that's just all semantics. I think I'm gonna fit right in here. You're my kind of people.
Now we're getting into the real hard stuff. In 2003, PETA came up with a true head-turning campaign, to say the least. It was funded by an anonymous Jewish philanthropist, which is certainly interesting. The ad campaign went like this. They produced 8 square-foot panels with photos side by side depicting various photos from the Holocaust next to animals in captivity or in slaughter, with captions directly comparing the treatment of the animals to, the worst event in human history. Obviously, this was a great tactic in getting the public riled up, giving PETA mainstream popularity, if you can call it that. They even got a feature on South Park, which is still to date the most accurate representation of the nut jobs in PETA. So well done, Matt and Trey. Later in 2004, due to a complaint made by Paul Spiegel and the Central Council of Jews in Germany, the ad campaign was ordered to stop, which led to an apology by PETA themselves. Despite what their website says, to clarify PETA's position on pit bulls, we're for them. The actions of PETA in the past certainly doesn't paint the same sentiment. Some years ago, Ingrid Newkirk, one of the founders of PETA, wrote an article essentially supporting that shelters across America to destroy all pit bulls in their care. PETA even wrote to a mayor in Tennessee telling him not to work with rescuers and to enforce a ban on the pit bull breed. But there is an issue with the ban and ultimately destroying any dog that is deemed a pit bull, and that is misidentification. The average dog shelter can misidentify breeds as much as 75% of the time. So how many pit bulls do you think are pulled into this category and used as collateral damage? A post made by Virginia Senator Bill Stanley in 2015, from July to September, 630 animals taken in, 490 euthanized, 27 adopted, which shockingly works out to a kill rate of 8 out of 10 dogs, with less than 5% being adopted. These are the numbers that PETA proudly supports. For an animal-loving organisation, we can safely say that the pit bull has made an enemy out of PETA. This story is quite shocking, but first I want to add a disclaimer onto this. What happened in this next case does not usually seem to be of a usual routine for PETA representatives. Although Ingrid Newkirk is on record saying if we felt an animal was in immediate danger, we would steal them. So you can read into that as you please. So onto the case. 2 former PETA representatives lured a pet chihuahua off of the owner's porch with treats and stole the pet and ultimately euthanized the dog for unknown reasons, as the dog was perfectly healthy. They even got landed with a $500 fine for not allowing the legal amount of time before euthanasia, which is 5 days. Seems like they were in a rush to get rid of this family pet. This story doesn't end there. The family have instructed a lawyer to come after PETA for the amount of a reported $9 million. The comments made were they've lost a member of their family, as anybody who has a dearly beloved pet understands. They're a member of your family. During the trial, PETA pushed for the case to be dismissed by arguing that, quote, the dog was unlicensed, so was not worth anything. The dog had no value beyond the cost of replacement for another dog. The court mostly rejected their arguments, except for one quite important one. PETA cited a law dated in 1887, which says to be properly licensed as a condition of being deemed personal property. Unfortunately for the family, PETA was right. The dog was not licensed, and the organisation described the dog nothing more than just property, something that can just be replaced. The hypocrisy over that statement from an organisation that proudly places the life of an animal on the same level as a human. You would think they would have some respect for the life of dogs, just a little bit, right? So where did the trial lead? In August 2017, the family settled for a much lower amount than the original $9 million. Instead, they settled for $49,000 and for a $2,000 donation to the SPCA in honour of Maya the Chihuahua. A happy ending? Not really. One thing is certain about PETA: when times are tough and, well, legal, the morals go down the drain and the hypocrisy is in plain sight. To say clearly that a dog is technically worthless because it doesn't have a piece of paper attached to it is a hideous thing to say coming from so-called animal lovers. They only seem to act in a way that is for self-promotion. Rather than fighting the good fight, they work in controversy to get their point across, which is why they are so hated. If you want to tap into the general public, you'll never get them in your favour if you are saying that the pet ownership is a weird bondage. Like, really? Obviously PETA has been involved in so much more than I can fit into this video, but I'd like to thank you all for watching, and I'll see you all in the next one. Bye bye.